Now, there are many ways that a bit or a collet can get stuck in your Dremel or Rotary tool. I'm going to show you the most common ways that it happens and how to fix them. Let's go! Okay, so the first common problem after using your Dremel for a while is that this collet nut right here will start to get rounded around the edges after countless of times of tightening and loosening the nut. This makes it so that this wrench will start to slip up when you try to tighten or loosen the nut. The solution to this one is to get a pair of bigger pliers that you can get a better grip with. So just hold the shaft lock button and then grip your collet nut with the pliers, and then you can untighten it. And really, now you can just use these pliers whenever you want to tighten and loosen the nut. Problem number 2 is when the collet is stuck inside the collet nut. I'm just holding it in here to show you. This has also been known to happen straight out of the package when you buy it. The solution is to get a bit like this one and just push the collet out with the shank. And then you just push it out and the collet comes out. Problem number 3 is when the collet is stuck in the shaft itself. It can be hard to get a good grip on the collet because of the way it gives in when you try to clamp it. This actually happens to me a lot. So what I do is that I just get a bit like this one and just push it into the collet, and then you can grip it and you get a lot more grip strength against the collet and it easily comes out. Problem number 4 is when the collet nut and the bit is just jammed up against each other in a weird way and they won't come loose from each other. What we have to do is just to release the tension against the bits some way. So what I do is I get a hammer, put the entire bit and collet nut down on the table and just bang it lightly. This usually helps to release the tension and the jam. If that doesn't help, you can just try to wiggle it as best as you can out to release the tension. And this usually will get a bit out of the collet. Okay, so problem number 5 is that the metal on the shaft lock button or the spindle inside itself has been worn down. This can happen if you accidentally press the shaft lock button while the Dremel is running. You can know if this has happened to you if the shaft just keeps spinning even if you're holding down the shaft lock button. I will show you the inside of this Dremel flex shaft so you can see it better, okay? As you can see, this has not happened to mine yet. Here's the hole that the shaft lock button goes into when you lock the shaft. There are 2 of these buttons, but you can see a little track starting to form around it, okay? If I use this a couple of months more, I think this might actually happen to mine. Let's take out the shaft and see if the button is stripped. So here is the little button that goes into the shaft. This stops the spindle from rotating, so you can change the bit. This can also be worn down, but as you can see, mine is perfectly fine as of now. This can also be worn down and it can form a track around here. If this happens to you, you can go online and order new parts. I think you can buy a spindle and you can definitely buy a new shaft lock button. I will also leave a link in the description to a video made by Jordy Johnson. This is a great video on how to deal with a worn down shaft lock button and shaft lock spindle. And the last problem is problem number 6. Now, if you don't use your Dremel that often and you store it with a bit and a collet nut tightened to the Dremel, there is a chance that it might start to rust and corrode onto the threads on the Dremel. And now it is way harder to get off. The solution, as you probably have guessed, is to get some WD-40 and try to spray it into the threads of the collet nut to remove some of the rust and corrosion. First thing, I just take off the nose cap to get more access. Then you get some WD-40. Preferably, you should have the long red nostril that goes out there for more accuracy, but I'm just going to use it as is and try to get it into the cracks here, okay? One thing that is important is to not get any WD-40 running into the tool itself. So try to keep it this way, okay? Now you can just let it sit for a while and let the WD-40 do its magic, okay? After a couple of minutes, we get a good set of pliers. So we can get a good grip on the collet nut. Now we can just press the shaft lock button and try to untighten the screw. Don't use too much force. Try to wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it. And if it doesn't work the first time, get some more WD-40, spray it in, wait a little bit, and then do it again, okay? Now we can try, and there it goes. Now mine wasn't rusted, this was just for display purposes. And after you get your bit out and your collet and collet nut, now we can use this method again. You have to clean off the WD-40. And my recommendation is, if you're not using your Dremel for a while, don't store it with the bit and the collet nut on. So let's just clean this off. And your Dremel is now ready to use again. Hopefully one of these methods worked for you and you got your bit or collet out of your Dremel. If not, you might have a bigger problem on your hands and you have to even take apart the Dremel itself. But that's for another video. See you next time.